welcome to another segment of Community Conversation. My name is Nancy Haase. I'm Deputy First Selectman here in Simsbury, and we have got a full house today. So we'll start over here. We've got Sean Askham, Selectman Sean Askham, and Selectman Sherry Cook. And our guest today is Board of Ed member Susan Salina, and then Selectman Mike Paine. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
We've got a lot to talk about in the short half hour that we're here, but Susan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
The buzzword of the moment is budget. And
as it should be.
As it should be. So we're all knee deep in it, and we appreciate you coming because there's a lot I know you want to share about the Board of Ed budget, but why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your involvement and length of time you've been on the Board of Ed and all the knowledge you bring, and we'll get right into all of the budget info.
All right. So I've been on the Board of Education since 2007. This is my 7th budget season, as we seem to mark time these days. I have 4 children, all through Simsbury School, from kindergarten through high school. I have a junior left at the high school, and I have an 8th grader. And so I've been kind of sleep-eating, dreaming all of my school stuff on every front. That was my first involvement with politics in any way, shape, or form, and I enjoy the work greatly. I'm on the curriculum subcommittee as well as the chair of the policy subcommittee.
Great.
And we'd love to see anybody at our Board of Ed meetings.
Yes.
It'd be really nice to have some people come on down.
Yes, we encourage everyone to attend many meetings in town. But so as I mentioned, we're here today primarily to talk about the budget. And if you could, I think you guys have been reviewing your budget for a while. We actually just got ours last night, but
we just voted on ours Tuesday at our Tuesday night meeting, actually. So we have a budget that is set to go to the Board of Finance on the 13th, 12th, 13th? 12th, I believe, Wednesday the 12th.
Couple of weeks, yeah.
Right. Not surprising that the Board of Ed is extremely well prepared.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well ahead of the curve.
They have done their homework.
As
we should.
Exactly.
Can't ask people to do theirs if we don't do ours.
there you go. Well put. Well put.
Essentially, the biggest thing we really want everybody to understand is when we initially went before the Board of Finance and presented the superintendent's budget, it was listed as a 1.48% budget. And increase, sorry, yes. Yeah. And there was a request from the Board of Finance that we look at budgets less than that, 1% and 0 on down. What we found in that process of really going back through the budget was, one, we could not go as low as we were asked to because of the minimum budget requirement by the state that provides for some funding that we get from the state capital.
Okay.
So we did look at the budget down to 1%, and then we got some really good news. We have, there's a big push for collaboration between your offices and our offices, and one of the benefits of that is the consolidated insurance carrier this year.
Yeah.
So due to savings through that of our fixed costs on that, it's going to come in between $300,000 and $400,000 for both boards. We were able to wipe out the increase we had budgeted for the health insurance this year, and it took our 1.48% budget and brought it right down to 1.05%.
Great.
Wow.
And so we are able to do the things we need to do for the school system to keep it moving forward and to manage Common Core standards and manage the new teacher evaluation and have the supports for our teachers and our students in place and have a budget that will do what the Board of Finance has asked us to do.
Yeah.
Now,
So
say that again. The number is 1.05.
1.05.
So in all your years?
In all my years, actually, in all the years that there has been record keeping in Simsbury, we actually looked this up at our last meeting. We have records on budgets back to 1981. There's never been a budget lower in recorded history.
Wow, that's
Well,
awesome.
thank you.
Yes.
And thank you for all that hard work. I know you guys, spend a lot of time, and a lot of effort through your subcommittees and through, talking with the principals in every building and other staff members to find out what you need, and I think it's great.
For us, this process starts in October.
Right.
And we started at the building level, and the principals talk with their staff, and then it goes up the line to principals talking with central office, and then it comes to us. And so it's a lot of revisions and discussions about what's truly necessary to support our kids, to move our curriculum forward, to meet the standards that are being asked of us, and to have the results we have.
Yeah, and I think the evaluation of the health, what's offered for our healthcare coverage to the employees was, I mean, that work was very arduous. They looked at a lot of things.
Yes.
They made sure that comparatively the plan was, offering the same types of things, and that the transition in terms of the available list of physicians and things that about 98%, I think, of folks or something to that level are being offered. So it's not won't be a difficult transition at all, and really offer the same type of benefits and at a great savings.
And the Board of Selectmen budget is going to benefit from that savings
Yes.
also,
It's a
which is
townwide
great.
budget, yeah.
Right, I think it's like an
Yeah.
80-20 split because
Something
we have
like
more
that.
employees
Right.
than the
Right.
town, but
And there's some variable cost baked into that, so the savings could go even significantly beyond the numbers you reported.
right, we're being a little conservative on it because we want to make sure.
It's the fixed versus the variable amounts,
Right.
for sure, but it's, no matter what, I think it's going to end up being a good deal for not only the participants of the plan, but the town overall.
Absolutely.
And it's a great first step towards hopefully some continued collaboration between the Board of Ed and town staff. And I don't know what's next, but I think that'll be important for our boards to talk about
Absolutely.
that obviously with the superintendent. This is his second budget?
This is his second budget,
So
yeah.
how has it been working with Matt Curtis so far?
Matt's been terrific. One of the things, and this goes even back to Diane, but a lot of what has come through that central office is really, we only ask for what we really believe we need. The budgets aren't padded in any way. I've had people say, well, don't you throw in extra so you can then negotiate? We don't do that. We never have. We believe in bringing the best budget forward right out of the gate. And Matt has worked so well with our building leaders and with our staff to fine-tune all of that. And, it right down to, of course, all the places we look to manage are outside the classroom first. So this year, due to declining enrollment, which we've all heard so much about, we're reducing 2 buses because we've lost enough kids that we can take 2 buses offline at a savings to the district.
Yeah.
So,
Creative solutions, right?
right.
Yeah.
So it's all about kind of finding those hidden things. We actually sat down and are, in a place where we're trying to tie our supplies back to the student. So, how much supplies do we need, office-wise, scholastically-wise? What do we really need? So we're really getting in and finding
Down
some
to the weeds.
savings in the nitty-gritty.
Which I think is important because other towns put these budgets in the paper. Everybody reads about, some other town is asking for a 4% increase or a 3.5% increase, but, you never hear what that actually turns out to be.
Right.
And, we get a lot of questions about, why does Glastonbury get, 4% and we get 1%? It's one of those comparisons, but
It's a tough comparison.
it really isn't a
It's not
good
apples to
comparison.
apples.
Exactly.
Yeah. All of those comparisons, whether they're in our budget or the Board of Ed's, it's got to be apples to apples.
Yeah.
And you got to dig into the numbers at least I found out for the first time last night when we started doing that.
It's an exciting process, isn't it?
That wasn't the word I was going to use.
Grueling?
It's about that thick.
Oh,
You get
yeah.
about 32 seconds to read it before you got to start asking intelligent
Right,
questions.
right.
Right, that's a tough one.
And we talk about the comparison of the size of our budget to yours, and so, here we are saying what we've got a lot to look at, and our timeline is definitely shorter. You guys have been, you were in front of the Board of Finance talking about the percentage increases
Right.
that you knew you were, like you said, that Matt Curtis had brought forward, and at that point, we weren't able to give the Board of Finance
A
a
ballpark.
glimpse of where we thought we were going to be, and so ours at this point, last year our increase was 1.71%
In total, correct? Yep.
in total. We did have some pension associated funds.
Yeah,
that-
we changed our pension assumption, which had it was a smart change. You guys had, I think, for the administrative staff as well.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
you did the same change. So on the
Yes.
Board of Ed side, and it was important because we're more realistically funding
Track,
for our
yeah.
pension obligations. So
Right.
it actually drove our liabilities up a bit, which increased our annual required contribution, or the term we love to use, ARC.
Right.
Right.
But it's a smart thing to do, and that's one of those good budget practices, good business practices that we do in this town.
Right.
And it's not a partisan thing. Everybody gets on
Yeah.
board with that because
Yeah.
that helps us maintain our AAA bond rating. that helps us, plan for tough times and do good things for the promises we made to our retirees. So that was a good move. But that was a big piece of our increase last year.
Yeah, we were just under 1, and I think that ARC, difference of funding the ARC made that push it to the 171 or 1.71.
And the 1% was good, or just under the 1% was a good number. We did that 2 years in a row.
Yes,
but that's only one half of it, right? I mean,
exactly. So, so you mentioned, you're on a lot of subcommittees and things, and one of those things you're doing is facilities
and enrollment task force.
And,
Yes.
and you touch upon the enrollment going down, but
Yes.
maybe you can just give folks an update on.
Sure. What we've started to do, I think people need to remember that when enrollment goes down, it doesn't go down in one little corner of town where you get all these economies from, we can drop a grade level or drop a classroom, because it's scattered among 5 elementary schools. So you have to remember
25
that.
third graders at Squadron all of a sudden.
Exactly,
That
right.
happen.
Can't say, we don't need that class anymore. So it's spread out among 5 elementary schools. And that bubble has not, it's just starting at Henry James now. The lower enrollments are just starting to hit Henry James now. So what we're doing in an effort to right-size our building, is how we like to put it.
Yep.
We, back in the day, and maybe it was in Sean's day or maybe a little after, we put a bunch of modulars
Back
on
when Sean was
Latimer
A little
Lane.
bit after me.
When Sean was in 3rd grade.
We put some modulars on Latimer Lane, we put some on Tooten Hills, and we put some on Central. And so modulars are really meant to have a 10 to 20 year life, and some of ours were 30 years old. So
Well, if they're 30 then, yeah, okay.
we got, that was at Latimer. There was one trailer at
I dodged that bullet.
So we removed all the modulars at Tooten Hills this past summer, and we've started to see this, not the bulk of the savings, because we did have removal costs associated with that, but we're starting to see the savings in electricity and heat and all those ancillary expenses that you get by reducing your square footage. We were slated, according to our proposed timeline, and I just want to get this right, we were going to remove Central School's modulars next, because we thought the enrollment would work with that. What we found is Central's enrollment did not decrease the way we expected it to. So now, but Latimer's decreased more than expected. So we're going to Latimer this coming summer, and we'll remove the Latimer modulars there. So again, that first year you don't get quite as much bang for your buck because you have the removal costs, but then we can, we'll start to see some of that. And Latimer has 28 classrooms in the building itself, in the true building. And 20 of those are deemed grade level classrooms. And then there's, you've got your art room, your library, your music room. So now what we're going to do is watch it very carefully, because we're exactly 20 classrooms projected for Latimer next year. So we could be a little tight. We may have to move some special services to a different room, but we're watching it very carefully. But we feel comfortable in moving forward with that modular removal there. And then we'll, again, review Central School and make sure that we're on track, because you don't want to have to overcrowd the classrooms. That's the last thing you want to do, and remove the space too quickly.
So in one of the questions, I can't remember which meeting it was that we were at, but somebody had asked about, well, can you sell them? Well, and they said in some cases, but the 30-year-old ones.
30-year one was really not of any value to anyone. And actually, the ones that are at Central, that the preschool is being housed in, I believe those are only about 10 years old. And that's another reason we're holding on to them, because there's a state, I don't want to say payback, but there's money we got from the state to help fund the modulars. And if you don't hold on to them for 10 years, you have to give back. So that helps us make that decision to keep them at Central another year as well.
Good move.
Yes. So we're mindful of our
But that's another
financial
example of you guys have a real good handle on what's going on. The superintendent is really in tune with the impacts of decisions.
Right.
So that's that's really great. And because folks talk to you guys a lot about declining enrollment. That's the buzzword that we use. The Board of Finance uses. You guys talk about it. People that come to public audience use it. But it's not something that happens instantaneously, right? It's
No.
it's a phased.
And what's
system.
very interesting for us is we have this group, NESDEC, who does our enrollment projections. And what we're finding is going out to 18, they go 5 years out because you can count the births. And then beyond that, it's truly a projection. But what we're finding is 5 years out, we're leveling at the elementary.
Really?
So have we hit the bottom of the curve? We're not sure. And so it'll be interesting to see. Now add into that if Meadowwood gets built, or there are other
Changes
there are
the
other
whole
pressures
dynamic,
that
right?
could
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So-
There was just an interesting presentation at the Economic Development meeting the other morning, and it was Landworks who's responsible for the West Street, and talking to the town about doing some development over by Powder Forest. And they had pulled the entire report. You know, I mean, a lot of the good questions that folks in the land use commissions are already asking them, although they were preliminary meetings and not official application meetings, were around enrollment. And I think the statistic they shared with us was that over in West Street, they have their 5th building just went online. I think 68 of the 80 units, and I might
So
be
this
off a
is
few
that
numbers.
grist mill
The
complex.
grist mill are occupied, so they're very close to capacity.
Wow.
And they have 8 total students coming out of that. So,
Okay.
you know, it used to be point however many,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
so
per
now they're-
household,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Less than
it's
one.
just, I mean, it's something definitely to watch, and all those statistics you guys get. But
Right.
really, what we do have to do is have folks like that who are also sort of living it day to day to literally take those numbers and share them with us,
Yes.
because depending upon you know, the cost per those units and that kind of a thing, you'll get a different level of student population that will.
Absolutely. And when you look at what goes into those projections, and not to belabor the point, and you can find some of this, if you go on the public schools website and you go to board initiatives, you can find a lot of information around the facilities and enrollment task force. So I'd advise people who are really curious to do that. But the things they take into consideration in those projections, the economic climate, the, you know, recent home sales, how many empty nesters, they count bedrooms. I mean, it's really
They're looking at-
fascinating what they look at.
Yeah.
And they come up with really credible numbers.
Do they?
Yeah.
Nice.
So the theme, and I think we talked a little bit about the philosophy of the budget being really a need-based budget and not necessarily looking at capacity, so to speak.
Right.
So it's not to say, geez, how much do you think we could afford, and then we'll sort of spend to that, but we really want to talk about looking at our needs. So, you know, we've talked about how you guys have done that such a good job at that on your operating budget side, and,
Right.
and again, that's what we're into now, and our process, as yours is also project-based. So last night we looked at our CIP plan, our capital improvement plan over 6 years, and you know, everything from technology is in there, and things around recreation, and so there's a lot of focus on things, including education and of course economic development. But can you speak to the security audit? I think that's another thing that's on a lot of people's minds.
Absolutely. So we, last year, had a security audit done. We hired an outside firm to come in, and they went into every building in town. They reviewed our procedures. They were incredibly helpful. We were very grateful. They gave us a nice pat on the back and said we were kind of leaps and bounds ahead of people having the buzzer systems all in place already at all of our buildings. So that was nice to hear. The 2 biggest points they really hit us on were the office at Squadron Line and the office at Henry James.
Yeah.
And we've talked about Henry James forever.
Yep.
It has been on that capital improvement plan for as long as anyone can remember. And the issue with Henry James, if you have not been in that building, is you walk into the doors, you buzz, and now you are in the main classroom hallway.
Yeah.
And you have to cross that classroom hallway to get to the office.
Yeah.
And
You're in
there's
contact
no
with
sight
students.
line
Yeah.
from the office staff to the front door
Yep.
in any way. So that is a very important project for us that we do have on the capital improvement plan for this year. That is before all of you. And then and to go along with that, to really try and tuck our security in tight, the last thing that we have outstanding is the office at Squadron Line. And that, in scope of capital improvement world, is a sort of more modest project. It involves flipping the nurse's office and the main office at Squadron Line.
Yeah.
And opening up a brick wall in the vestibule so that there is now a direct sight line to the front door,
Yeah.
to the circle where the cars pull in, where the buses come in.
Yeah.
It would be such a huge shift and such a valuable one.
And not as difficult as the Henry James
the Henry
because
James
of the
project.
Right. And even at Henry James, we've identified 2 classrooms that any parent who's been involved in PTC knows we use them for the PTC. It's the front 2 classrooms where we could, instead of a huge renovation, take the office, move it to those 2 classrooms. Again, open up the brick wall in that vestibule, and it solves our problem.
Yeah.
Right.
And we then convert the office to the 2 classrooms that we just lost.
right.
Yeah, and I think that's important to know because we've talked about this as long as I've been on the board and then some. When you folks do capital, as do we for the most part, you do it the right way. You don't, you're not suggesting we're going to build the new school. Or
No.
You're not suggesting that we're going to spend millions of dollars to relocate an office. You've looked at it 6 ways to Sunday, and I'm sure Burke has gotten more quotes than necessary to make sure that he's doing
As should he.
what he should be doing
Right,
with the
due
dollars.
diligence with it, yes,
So
absolutely.
and they are they are substantial dollar amount projects. But when you think about it, school safety is, how do you put a price tag on that, right? That's
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, you want to know when you send your kid to school that they're in a good place. And so I think if we get those 2 projects taken care of, I think everybody would just breathe a little bit easier. And I know that we have parents who repeatedly at Henry James and at Squadron Line are saying, when are you going to address this?
Right, well, we have an audit now. I mean, we've already known it's been an issue. Now we have an
the
audit from
official word.
experts that
Yeah.
say, hey, this is an issue.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting. So just we all know this, but just so that folks know it, the capital improvement process is a little bit different than the operating budget process, right?
Yes.
You folks initiate the projects on the Board of Ed side. We initiate the projects on the Board of Selectmen side. They all get put together on the capital improvement plan, and they actually have to come through us.
Right, you
First.
vote
Right.
first.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get the up or down on both the town side project and the Board of Ed side
Yes.
project. So it's really the only control or influence we have on the Board of Ed side, which is a little different. And then the Planning Commission, Mike's and my former commission, also has a say from
Oh, I didn't
a
realize the
capital
Planning
improvement.
Commission came
Oh,
into it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
I'm learning something.
It's a powerful group.
It's an important, it's an
very
interesting
important.
check and balance that's
It
out
is.
there. And
It's a
ultimately,
great idea. Yeah.
it goes to the Board of Finance, and they figure out, can we afford it? Can we, we pay for it? But you
How do
folks
we
look
pay
at
for
that
it?
as well. Should
Absolutely.
we do this? Can we do this?
Right.
And then, can we afford to do this?
Right,
Yeah.
and try to find the most streamlined way to get it done.
Right.
Because as we all know, any capital improvement budget, you may approve it in May, but we can't even put a shovel in the ground for a year.
Right.
So that takes time. So from
Right.
the approval process to the start of the work, there's a gap as well.
Right.
Right.
So if we said go in April for this and it went to referendum, you wouldn't even be able to put a shovel in the ground until the summer of 15
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
to
And there's
fix these offices.
Right.
And that's why it's a 6-year plan, which is really, I think, a really good process. I was amazed when I was on planning how long that took and everything else. So it's a good process. It
Yeah.
really
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Well, there's also some question, when we go through bonding, how much time are we going to take to pay for these projects? And that
Yes.
affects our budgets going out
It does.
for years.
Yeah.
And so, part of our process, for both of us is saying, do we want to pay for something for 10 years? Do we want to pay for something for 15 years? How much interest do we want to pay
Right.
on whatever the
Or
project is?
Smaller projects use cash. There's a
Exactly,
bunch of
and
options.
what's the most economical way to do that?
Yeah,
And
that's something
it's
we're
all
all-
part of the planning.
We're going to hear a lot about that in the coming weeks, I'm sure, from both our board and from the Board of Finance. There's the 7% guideline that we all talk about, and is that a hard
5 to 7%.
5?
Yes.
No, it's funny.
Excuse me,
We
Dad,
laugh, but
Dad, I'm sorry. You're right. It's 5 to 7%, and I'll hear that at dinner this weekend.
I never heard the 5.
I might
It
get
is.
right
Yeah,
into dinner.
If I
This
could-
is news.
I could give my father, who I'm very proud of, and now is the chairman of the Board of Finance, credit where credit is due. My entire childhood and now in my adulthood, we used to pay cash for a lot of things, is my father's favorite phrase. And that wasn't because we had a ton of cash sitting around and we did crazy things with the budget. It's because that was philosophically what the Board of Finance and what the town believed in doing at the time.
Right.
Because why take out debt if you don't need to?
Right.
And why would you leverage yourself all the way up to your 7% guideline if you don't need to?
Right.
Right? Because we have things like security audits that come down where we pretty much have to do these things, right?
All right.
You
Well,
know,
that's how we feel.
and we have, winter storms where we spend $3.6 million, and God bless the
And
state and the federal government.
Could have been more had we
Could have
not
been
had the
worse.
reserves to be able
Yeah.
to step right in.
Exactly right. And we
Yeah.
were able to, we got a lot of that money back, but we were in a great financial position. We have a AAA bond rating because of a long-standing history of taking care of our pension obligations, managing our debt properly,
Looking ahead.
responsible budgeting on both parties, and both parties have done that collaboratively. So,
Yes.
we're going to get into some philosophical debates, not about projects, but about capacity, as we all do on our own homes, right?
Yeah.
We all have credit cards, we all have mortgages, we all have, rental fees, we all have cars, those sorts of things. And just because you can afford a brand new car doesn't mean you go out and buy one. Maybe you go out and take a look at a used car.
Right.
Because you got maybe some unplanned expenses coming up because that roof doesn't look too good on the house, or maybe that driveway's going.
Well, and we've
So-
talked about, the grand list growth, and we're happy that it's, there's some there, and it's, I think everybody, again, you talk about things in the paper, people are seeing 0.5% grand list growth increase and 0.6%. It's not great, but it's nice
something.
that it's there.
It's
Better
something,
than
right?
negative.
Certainly
Better
nice
than
that it's there.
a negative.
And we do have a lot of things in the queue, but you can't count it until the shovel's in the ground. And so when we plan, and we sit here and we've mentioned in past segments about the Hartford, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there, but we need to plan appropriately and, with the consideration of what we know and what we need, and not necessarily like we were talking about to capacity and such. So there's a lot to consider, a lot that we are considering, a lot of difficult decisions, and a lot of priorities. And so within the operating budgets, within the capital budgets, and again, mentioning things like the IT and fiber optics that we're entertaining right now, and some of those investments that you need to make, because that speaks towards economic development for our geographic mapping system that we're trying to get in place.
And again, that's another collaborative effort that we're trying to
is.
work on between the Board
That's
of
a great
Education.
initiative.
We are trying to marshal our forces around technology together.
Yeah.
Right.
It helps all of us.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because the reality is the product is the town.
Absolutely.
And that's the more we can leverage the savings and lower our costs or hold our costs the same and end up with more cash available to maybe, instead of bonding something or use the town's credit card, as somebody said, to pay for things, it benefits the product that we have for everybody.
So we are out of time.
Okay.
Wow.
I know.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It is.
Really?
I know. And so I can't say enough that we encourage people to get involved in the process, go on the town
Hear, hear.
website, take a look at the budget,
Call
get
us, email
call
us,
us,
please.
email us.
Now
Send us your
we-
ideas.
We need to hear from you now,
Yes.
because once it goes to referendum, it's too late. All you can do is vote at that point. You got to tell us now what your priority
Right.
And
is.
don't
us
forget
feedback.
to come voice your opinion at
Please.
the public hearing. And we have public audience at the beginning and end of every Board of Education meeting.
Yep.
We would love to hear from people.
Yeah, and watch SCTV. So thank you to SCTV for having us, and thank you all for joining us for another edition of Community Conversations.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.